Hey everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. Coming up on this week's episode, provisional findings of an investigation by UK regulators into the cloud service market has been published. Also, several countries move to prohibit use of DeepSeek within their ranks. And Windows 11 adoption rate is on the rise. For this and more, keep listening to this episode of the podcast, which of course, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. And that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops. And also brought to you by Master Packager, who make an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoyed the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority released provisional findings from its investigation into the cloud services market, highlighting issues with competition. The report found that major providers like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft dominate the market, limiting customer choice and leading to higher costs, lower service quality, and less innovation. Switching between providers is also challenging due to technical and commercial barriers. The CMA suggests using new digital market powers to investigate AWS and Microsoft further and potentially designate them with strategic market status. The final report is not expected until August of this year, but this is a clear indication of what people were hypothesizing was the means for this investigation or the reason for this investigation. It certainly seems so, and it seems their early findings and early indications are that they are going to find that there's some anti-competitive practices going on in the cloud services market. And it's interesting that they highlight the difficulty in moving across clouds too. So it would be interesting to see the final report in August. GitHub suffered a major outage that left those dependent on the platform frustrated. Users reported experiencing timeouts when performing pull requests, creating or viewing issues, and even sometimes when just viewing repositories and commits, according to BlueBeacomputer.com. The error people were saying was, quote, "We couldn't respond to your request in time. Sorry about that. Please try refreshing and contact us if the problem persists," end quote. After detecting the issue, GitHub published a notice stating that they would be failing over one of their primary caching hosts to complete the mitigation of the problem, and that users would experience some temporary service disruptions until the event is complete. Then around 10:30 a.m., quite some time after the first reports were made of the issue and Down Detector indicated an issue, they gave the green light to say that it had now been resolved. Everyone feels it when such an important platform that's cloud hosted goes down. And I guess it's just one of the downsides of relying on cloud services. The latest operating system shared data just hit Stack Counter, and it shows a pretty strong uptick for Windows 11, which now has 36.65% of the market share, its highest share so far. Now, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll know that Stack Counter data actually showed a decline in Windows 11 adoption at the end of last year after an initial 6-month increase month on month. At that time, I shared the fact that at least the register had reached out to Stack Counter for clarification because it seemed a bit odd. They didn't seem to ever follow through and share that clarification, and I saw that the register did have an updated post this week, I believe, or maybe last week, about Windows 11 adoption rate increasing, but it didn't seem to clarify what was the cause of the downtick at the end of last year. Now, they're not the only source, I guess, for adoption rate or OS utilization rates. I've referenced Steam data in the past that really only reflects the gaming community, and even more recently, Pornhub's data. The thing about all of these sources is that they rely on data coming from the consumer side. Now, Stack Counter was probably the only one of those three that would also have enterprise machines in the mix, but none of these sources really reflect what is going on in the enterprise as a whole. And over the last 6 months or so, there's been a lot of polls posted on social media and surveys trying to gauge adoption in the enterprise, but the sample size for those has been tiny. From what I've seen in these polls, and also just from talking to people at events last year, it seems most enterprises have started kicking the tires on Windows 11, but have not fully adopted it yet, but plan to do so. And I'm guessing that this year is going to be a big year for Windows 11 adoption. Google's parent company, Alphabet, expects to invest approximately $75 billion in capital expenditures in 2025, according to a statement from their CEO. Alphabet spent $32.3 billion on capital expenditures in 2023, so $75 billion in 2025 would be a big jump, and it's perhaps not surprising given the fact that they're in that very competitive generative AI space, and they need to try and claw back some of that market that they've lost to OpenAI, and now DeepSeek are hot on everyone's heels too. So some large investment is likely required, and it seems like they're going to be doing so. A few outlets recently covered the fact a porn app has been marketing itself as the first Apple-approved hardcore porn app and is being offered via Alt Store and Epic stores. But as you'd probably guess, this app is not actually in the Apple App Store and is not actually Apple approved, regardless of what they claim. And Apple have stated, quote, "Contrary to the false statements made by the marketplace developer, we certainly do not approve of this app and would never offer it in our App Store. The truth is that we are required by the European Commission to allow it to be distributed by marketplace operators like AltStore and Epic, who may not share our concerns for user safety. We are deeply concerned about the safety risks that hardcore porn apps of this type create for EU users, especially kids. This app and others like it will undermine consumer trust and confidence in our ecosystem that we've worked for more than a decade to make the best in the world." End quote. Now, my gut instinct there is actually to sympathize with Apple because they are really the only major vendor who has historically done a really good job of ensuring decent quality in their app store. However, given the fact that Apple has maliciously complied with regulations set by the European Commission in the past, I don't have all that much sympathy. If they were just willing to work collaboratively with the regulators, maybe things would go a little smoother and everything would be more effective. Several countries have moved to prohibit the use of DeepSeek by their government agency staff, including Taiwan, which seems obvious given their conflict with China, but also several US branches of the government, such as the US Congress, the Pentagon, and even the US Navy. NASA has banned its use too, and so too has Australia and Italy. And Italy is a little bit interesting because I believe they were like the first to take a standoff approach to OpenAI in the early days of OpenAI and ChatGPT's mainstream attention. India's finance minister, according to the Economic Times of India, has asked its employees not to use any AI tools, and watchdogs of European countries such as Ireland, France, Belgium, and Netherlands have also raised concerns about the DeepSeek app's data collection practices. So again, like I said on previous episodes of the podcast, these are all concerns and things that came up when OpenAI was getting a lot of attention too. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to make a whole lot of difference or mean anything in the long run, but the fact that it's a Chinese company may mean that these criticisms actually hold water and this does affect its success. OpenAI launched their O3 mini model, which they say advances the boundaries of what small models can achieve. So apparently, like September's O1 mini before it, the model has been optimized for STEM functions and shows particular strength in science, maths, and coding. For those wondering if this model cracks the AGI goal that Sam Altman was talking about quite a lot last year, the O3 mini model scored a dismal score of 0% on a test meant to measure if and when models can automate the job of an OpenAI research engineer in terms of coding. So it's still a ways off. The system was trained on a mix of publicly available data, of course, and custom data sets developed in-house by OpenAI. OpenAI says they use rigorous filtering to maintain data quality and mitigate potential risks, which, sure, but a lot seems to fall through the cracks. It's interesting with these mini models. They're becoming, I guess, much more tailored to specific functions like O1 was in the past. If you're using ChatGPT, you may be more inclined to just use 4.0, for example, instead of these mini models, because depending on what you might ask it, the results could actually be inferior to the previous model. Microsoft has released a new PowerShell script, Make 2023 Bootable Media.ps1, which is designed to update Windows bootable media for Windows 10 and Windows 11. The update ensures compatibility with the Windows UEFI CA 2023 certificate to address the Black Lotus Secure Boot vulnerability that was being leveraged. And that one is tracked as CVE-2023-24932, and I've mentioned on previous episodes of the podcast. The script can be applied to various media types, including ISO files, USB drives, and network paths. And to use the script effectively, it's essential to have the latest Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit, or Windows ADK, installed and to run the script from an elevated PowerShell prompt. So if you are in the business of creating bootable media, you may want to consider using this. Dell has moved to increase the number of its staff that have to return to the office full-time. Dell CEO Michael Dell apparently wrote, quote, "All hybrid and remote team members who live near a Dell office will work in the office 5 days a week. We are retiring the hybrid policy effective that day," and that day, I believe, is set to come in March. He went on to say, quote, "What we're finding is that for all the technology in the world, nothing is faster than the speed of human interaction. A 30-second conversation can replace an email back and forth that goes on for hours or even days," end quote. So I'm going to call BS on this. It's like he's never actually worked maybe in a non-managerial role within an office. There's so much time wasted in an office with BS talk, with people coming to your cubicle and asking a question, but then staying for 15 minutes just shooting the breeze and talking absolute nonsense or venting about something. With the likes of Teams, Slack, Zoom, and all that, I find that I'm actually more productive working from home, and people are responsive. Like, it doesn't take days to figure out something when you have employees or work colleagues who are actually responsive. It sounds like his problem is not the policy, it's his employees, but I actually not sure I even believe that, to be honest. I think he's just throwing out BS excuses. I'm sure the people who work for Dell are responsive and are professional. I saw some comments, again, suggesting that this is probably really just a cover for layoffs in the future, which is really sad. Finally, for this week, Ars Technica had an intriguing article on how researchers use the Internet Archive to preserve public health data after thousands of pages were removed from the US CDC website due to executive orders from the president. The Internet Archive snapshots of the web helped researchers track the deletions and preserve crucial data sets, including some of the CDC's guidelines on reproductive health and vaccination. Researchers worked quickly to download and upload these materials to the Internet Archive. However, gaps remain in the archive data, and researchers continue to monitor and preserve the missing content. So I always just found like the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, kind of useful to look at some like dated websites, but this is a pretty important use, I guess. So if you ever have a concern that an organization or someone is going to go and remove some of your information from the web and you'd like to keep it, you may want to do what these researchers are doing. But now this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. First, just to promote some of my own work, we recently published an article on 5 ways to optimize Azure Virtual Desktop performance at newmessent.com. I did a bit of work on this blog post and pretty proud of it. So yeah, if you're interested in AVD, if you're already using AVD, this might be of interest to you. I'll share a link to that with this episode, which is episode 372, and you'll find that at 5bytespodcast.com. But finally, I saw my buddy Ruben shared on LinkedIn that he was involved in a horrible accident back on January 15th when at a team event in Texas. He posted a kind of shorter 10 lessons learned from the accident. but it also links to a much longer, more comprehensive telling of his story. And I'd recommend that you check out the longer, more comprehensive one because it is quite the story. So, just for someone who has done an awful lot in the community in many years now, I would like to send out well wishes to Ruben. I hope you are well on the mend, and I saw in the article that you were talking to someone on the flight about Phoenix, Arizona, and Sedona. So hopefully that means you're going to be going to the final EUC Unplugged event in Sedona. And if so, I hope you're much better when that rolls around, and I'll see you there. Take care of yourself. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks everyone so much for listening.